Alright? Hi, Anakin is still under the weather, so I will be playing the part of Anakin on this video. Welcome to part 4 of our playthrough of Railway Empire 2 Scenario 13 Sitting on the Fence. We are going to start with a detailed review of our plan for accomplishing the Phase 2 and optional tasks. I've made some changes to the plan. We will look at those and see what useful insight we can find. We have moved into a mode where our gameplay is centered on growing cities. Every task we have, even producing and shipping weapons, comes down to a lot of city growth. We also must recognize that we only have one coal field and one iron ore mine to work with, which absolutely limits how quickly we can produce weapons. One of our overarching goals going forward is to make each city cluster a set it and forget it cluster to the extent possible. I want to get back to more of what I thought to be clear, organized planning for the game for several reasons. It's a solid way to play, and honestly, even more importantly, it's what I enjoy. I'm finding I'm enjoying the game again, and for the most part it is due to getting back to what I think are the basics. Solid analysis, fact-based planning, and consistent methodologies for getting the key aspects of the game under control. If I just didn't have to deal with these narcissistic voice actors. Oh, sorry, I thought I deleted that. You really do just read whatever is in front of you, don't you? The plan helps me know what I should be focusing on at any given point and allows me to see the big picture at the same time. Do you need to do this kind of thing to play Railway Empire 2 well? Of course not. In fact, I suspect there are a rare few who would go to this much trouble. But two things drive me to do this. 1. I'm trying to help others through these videos. Having a written plan is an obvious and effective way to facilitate sharing ideas. 2. I like to do it. Sometimes it is more fun than playing the game. The reserved area north of Luxembourg I thought was a future army camp turned out to be a yet-to-be-discovered oil field. If time permits, we will build out a total of 4 city clusters. From the plan, move to 4 clusters in priority order. 1. Dijon Auxere Orleans Tours, hybrid with beer sourced from Paris and steel and chemicals going back to weapons factory in Paris. 2. Paris Nancy Strasbourg. 3. Eindhoven Amsterdam Groningen. 4. Luxembourg Brussels Lille. Why prioritize Dijon Auxere Orleans Tours? Because if we don't grow those cities, our plan to put steel and chemical industries there will fail, because we won't have large enough supporting cities to allow upgrading the industries as needed. No weapons. No good. Paris Nancy Strasbourg. Number 2, because Paris must grow to 85k so we can send tools there. The original Eindhoven Amsterdam Groningen cluster, because Eindhoven is beautifully situated to grow and the other 2 cities can be easily supplied other than wood. If time permits, we will add Luxembourg Brussels Lille. Now we can organize what we should be doing as we play the game. From the plan. Steps in priority order. 1. React to new industry opportunities as they occur. 2. Set up warehouses and dedicated track and freight lines to allow set it and forget it for each cluster supporting 100k target growth. 3. Add trains to passenger mail lines to take advantage of the growing cities. 4. After each cluster is built, return to the previously completed ones and rebalance the raw materials and factories, upgrading them as appropriate. Notes: buy raw material sources and factories to the extent possible. Use our set it and forget it route calculations to preload each cluster with adequate train routes and trains. Before we start, let's take a quick look at set it and forget it and how we will use it during gameplay. The set it and forget it calculations model how many goods are needed and what frequency of delivery is needed to support 2 or 3 city clusters, with each city growing to around 100k. In the upper left you can see the route frequency needed to supply a weekly demand of 1 through 6 and the route frequency needed to support that rate of demand. We use that data to estimate the route frequencies needed for each individual raw material based on its anticipated total demand to support the cities in the cluster at 100k per city. We also use anticipated demand of finished goods, 2 factories per city, because they won't get the 3rd industry slot until 90k, to allow us to calculate route frequencies needed to support moving goods, manufactured and raw, from city to city. For each city to city freight line we will total the number of items moving between the 2 cities, assuming 2 manufactured goods from each city and the number of raw materials housed in warehouses at the cities. We can use that to make a good estimate of the frequency we need for that particular route. The required frequency will depend upon the number of goods, as some cities will not have raw materials while others could have anywhere from 1 to 6 depending on the warehouse design we use. I'm going through all this in theory now, as I won't be constantly commenting on this during gameplay. Now finally let's get started.
Are you sure you're alright?
Yes, why do you ask?
Because you seem to have some unintended long breaks in those last passages.
That's because the sentences were too long.
You need to read better.
No, you need to write better. Is that mic live?
Don't worry about it. I'll edit it out before it goes on YouTube.
One thing I forgot to add to the plan is restructuring our debt. We will save money and close all our bonds, then open bigger bonds. We use that money for our next project. Then rinse and repeat. Here's an open industry slot in a perfect place. We will place a meat industry in Eindhoven and ensure that it has a direct feed of cattle from the ranch near Lille. Right now we are shipping meat from Lille into a large, not to my liking, northern cluster that will eventually get reorganized per our plan. Despite all our love of planning, we still need to play the game. That means reacting to opportunities as they happen and similarly troubleshooting problems as they arise. Good news, this is an opportunity for a connection bonus that will pay well and is very useful since Paris is producing beer for the Paris-Nancy-Strasbourg cluster. We intend to add it as a beer producer as an offshoot of the Dijon Auxere Orleans Tours cluster very shortly. We will buy the farm before setting up the connection. See how the population of Orleans is dwindling. We are taking all the raw resources by train to the Paris-Nancy-Strasbourg cluster. This means that the cities to the south won't be getting anything overland and their populations will start to decline. The same thing will happen in Auxerre. We need to get that city growth cluster set up quickly if our plan for chemicals in Orleans and steel in Auxerre has even a chance of working. I hesitated on that salt mine auction because salt won't be needed for quite a while and it is clumsily located to the northwest, but decided to buy. Auctions are typically discounted and we will get an additional discount after the sale closes. We need to grow our company value to close a task and to allow us to open larger bonds. In order to open another bond, your total of current bonds cannot exceed 10% of your company value. With a clean slate, open the biggest bond that won't quite hit 10%. Then open the biggest one still on the table. You can get much more than 10% of company value doing it this way. The super easy way from a clean slate is open the second biggest bond, then open the biggest bond. Same result, no math. Now that we have a fair amount of money, we will take on our first big project, creating the Dijon Auxere Orleans Tours, plus Paris, cluster to promote city growth. I won't be commenting on each little thing, particularly the basic station and track construction.
There are a few twists and interesting techniques used along the way. I will comment on those as they pop up. At this point, I am thinking of Auxerre as the single warehouse for raw materials for the entire cluster. As we will see, I change my mind and go to a model where each raw material enters the system at a station warehouse at the nearest city in the cluster. I'm going off script right now, but how do you watch this boring crap? Anakin just talks and talks while you watch virtually nothing happening on screen. He analyzes the simplest thing to death. It's a wonder he can dress himself as he agonizes over which shoe to put on first, coming up with all kind of senseless variables to consider. I have to say this game just isn't as hard as he makes it seem. I've watched him play for 45 minutes now and I've got it down. I'm thinking of making my own YouTube channel and letting you see how to really play this game. I will keep you posted. I'm pondering how I really want to use warehouses and settle on the raw material to closest city approach. Also regarding maintenance, decide to add it to each city warehouse station. Really should have added it to the raw materials stations as well. Maybe another item for the to-do list. Each warehouse will only need to store what it takes in. City-to-city freight lines will allow whatever each warehouse holds to be targeted for and distributed to the other cities in the cluster. There goes our beautiful dispatch halls. We need maintenance to ensure we have it covered for the city-to-city trains as well as the raw materials deliveries coming in. We could move maintenance out to each raw material station, but the city-to-city freight lines would be uncovered. We go on a buying spree, gobbling up as many raw materials as we can.
If no one else bids, it's easy to win.
We are starting to see signs of a beautiful superhighway of track, a sure sign that Anakin is involved. Several of you, including Sour Joe, Matt, and Johnny, have mentioned two things about the station building and seeing the contour lines. If you always build from the Build Track menu, you will see the contour lines provided you have the option turned on. If you forget, hit H on PC to turn the contour lines on. Trying to remember this. Obviously, I sometimes fail. I'm beginning to appreciate how expensive it is to set up a full cluster deliver system while buying farms and factories. Could have had some pieces of this equipped with trains and running, but I really wanted to see the whole system before firing it up.
If no one else bids, it's easy to win.
I'm looking at the location of the fruit and coal and wondering how to easily get it from the northwest to the southeast. We will use intercity warehouse transfer to take in fruit at the warehouse to the north and make it available for trains using the warehouse to the south. We just need to ensure we have both warehouses handling fruit. This warehouse needs to take in fruit and beer. The beer will eventually come from Paris. There's lots of good training to target. Our next big project will be drastically improving the Paris-Nancy-Strasbourg cluster. In anticipation, we will expand the Paris freight station to accommodate connections to Orleans and Auxerre. Remember, eventually chemicals from Orleans to Paris in exchange for beer and steel from Auxerre to Paris also in exchange for beer. Similar to Orleans, we will add a northern freight station in Auxere which will need to be coordinated with the southern freight station. Since we are using the two warehouses approach, we could simplify the sugar delivery by moving it to the northern station. I choose not to because the track and bridge add to our company value, and besides, the bridge looks cool. Okay, finally, time to run trains on our new system. I need to do a bit more analysis to have a really good algorithm to determine number of trains on the city-to-city freight lines. Did you hear that? More analysis. What's wrong? Did putting your left shoe on first cause you to have a bad day? Good grief, just throw some trains on there and get on with already. For now, we will target a maximum route time of around 9 days for each city-to-city line. Contemplated a continuous loop kind of city-to-city line, but thought direct connections between each city pair would be most efficient and predictable. Since there will be 3 raw materials in addition to manufactured goods at Dijon, we will need to make sure to run plenty of trains. Considered running a more direct line from Dijon to Tours, but ultimately decided to stick with the main route and monitor for problems. I'm starting to dislike Walter, just a little bit. I think the train lines to Dijon are a bit light. Corn needs to be a frequency of 14 for a 2-city clusters. We are basically feeding two 2-city clusters, so this duration is not quite good enough with one train. The wool is a one-off going only to Dijon, so we will add it to the Dijon-Nancy Express track.
It was cheap.
Freight is looking good, so let's bump up the passenger/mail service. I confused myself, not hard to do, by clicking on the freight station in Tours trying to see the express train lines. Realized that I was selling the express lines short. Ideally, we would have about a 4 to 5 day frequency so we don't lose customers who lose patience. Another task done. 1,500 passengers to Strasbourg. Remember, we set up our train line so every connected city could send passengers and mail to Strasbourg. We need to get coal going to Orleans, then eventually to feed the steel mill in Auxerre. We will run 2 lines from the coal/fruit station, one prioritizing coal and the other prioritizing fruit. Those trains with X on them are running entire routes without any freight. That's to be expected considering how we fired off all the city-to-city lines and the raw materials have not had time to make deliveries to give them something to haul. We now knock down our redundant textile factory in Orleans and replace it with a chemical plant to feed the weapons factory in Paris. Time to buy the weapons factory and begin production.
Enjoy your auction content.
Next time we will restructure our debt and start our next big project, improving the Paris-Nancy-Strasbourg cluster. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found something useful that will improve your enjoyment of the game. I hope you will like, comment, and subscribe and join us for our next Railway Empire 2 video. Thank you.